Welcome to this episode of the For the Love of Theatre podcast, which aims to bring the South Australian community theatre scene to you. My name is Annabel Whitford and I will be your host. The intention of this podcast is to celebrate our quality community theatre productions, their creatives, and create a further sense of connection between all the theatre groups, their audiences, and you, our listeners. I hope that in future episodes we will cover other companies, their productions, and have other guest hosts. And if this sounds like something you'd want to be a part of, let us know. Email fortheloveoftheatrePodcast@gmail.com. As always, let's start with a creative quote, and this one comes from Jane Austen. It isn't what we say or think that defines us, but what we do. And speaking of Jane Austen, this week's episode of the For the Love of Theatre podcast focuses on the University of Adelaide Theatre Guild's production of The Watsons.
University of Adelaide Theatre Guild presents The Watsons, written by Laura Wade, based on an unfinished novel by Jane Austen, directed by Matthew Chapman. Playing in the Little Theatre from the 1st of August. Tickets at trybooking.com/CXJIN.
Coming up are interviews with the director, Matthew Chapman, and actors Lindy LeCornu, Genevieve Hudson, and Imogen Deller-Evans. So stay tuned.
A Jane Austen play you don't know the ending to? That's all right. Neither did she. The Watsons are in crisis. Cut off financially from her benefactor, the youngest, Emma, returns to her dying father and spinster sisters with the task of finding a husband. And finding one now. Matchmakers, matchbreakers, cads, stuffy clergymen, and an overactive rumour mill all conspire as wedding bells ring in the distance and Emma eyes off a certain man. And that's where we leave it. See, Jane Austen never finished the story, so it's up to Emma, with the help of modern-day Laura, a jaded playwright with a rapidly approaching deadline, to find her own happy ending. And that's where the fun really begins.
I kicked off my interviews for this episode talking with the director.
Hi, I'm Matt Chapman and I am directing The Watsons.
Sorry, Matt, why The Watsons?
Oh, I hate this question. I came across it back in 2023. I was in the dressing room of the Arts Theatre doing a play with 25 people, all wearing bizarre pirate costumes, so it was sort of 18th century vaguely. And I was reading this play, which I just came across my desk one day, and while I was reading it in the dressing room, I'd see all these actors coming back after they'd been killed or whatever had happened to them. They'd sit down and they would, after they finished their scenes, and they would just do nothing. And so the context of that and reading that, and then reading when these characters finish their story, and then coming across this unfinished Jane Austen story, the two things were sort of melding in my head and being like, what happens to those people when their story ends? Where do they go?
When you submitted this play to the Guild, what was your vision, your initial vision, and have you been able to maintain that throughout this rehearsal period?
I mean, we are a month out at the moment, so I guess we'll find out in a couple of weeks whether the vision is maintained. But the whole thing in my head with it was this is the Regency version of The Matrix. So that idea of the no space and something that exists beyond reality. So what happens when we're in that world? Are we doing like a video game thing? I think at one point I mentioned when I was talking to the actors, do you remember the old 90s screensaver?
Yes.
And you had like the one that was like the zippy thing.
Yes.
And then there was the one that was just that never-ending maze of walls.
Yes.
Now, and I remember as a kid being fascinated by just bumping into the walls and going around. But that kind of got me thinking with this too, like what happens when you get to the end of where this story ends? Do you come up against a wall? What is there? Is it just like, what is the space there? I think there's a mention in the play about the idea of walking past and there are trees and then there's nothing. But what does nothing feel like and what does nothing look like?
Yeah, it's interesting when you put it that way. I'm unfamiliar with Laura Wade's other work, so what was As far as your knowledge goes, what was her intention when she comes across this unfinished Jane Austen novel?
Well, I think one of the key things with her work is that she always likes to start in one place and then about 10 minutes in spin it completely in a different direction. So the most famous play I think she's written recently, which everyone has gone crazy for around the world, is a play called Home, I'm Darling, which Therry, I think, put on 2 years ago. And the premise within that was that we start in this world that feels very 1950s Technicolor, Doris Day style. And at the end of the first scene, which is about 10, 15 minutes into the play, the main actress pulls out a laptop. And you realize that you're actually in the modern world, and it becomes this thing about this play spins off into this direction about what it's like to live through nostalgia and what is nostalgia. So in this play, we kind of do the same thing in that we start in one direction, and then when the fragment of the Jane Austen wrote down herself, when that ends, our play heads off in a completely different direction as well. And I don't want to say what that is yet, because I think that should be the fun for everyone to explore when they see the show. But it does spin off into quite a few different directions that you just do not expect.
Sounds very enticing.
I hope so.
You described it beautifully as Regency meets the Matrix, or the Regency version of the Matrix. How does that come through in your set design? What's the set going to look like?
So our set, and this actually came from a conversation about the last play that I directed for the Uni Guild, which was Arcadia by Tom Stoppard. With that, we had the limitation of how do you bring a Regency room into that limitations of the Little Theatre, where you only got that back wall. So there's a finite number of ways of doing that. So when we came to doing this play, my first thought was, how do we not do the Regency room that we did in Arcadia? So our concept involves paper and sketching and free drawing. That's all I'm going to say.
So when I come to see it, or when people come to see this show, what do you hope they get out of it?
There's a lot of things. I hope that they get, first of all, to see the wonderful Imogen in a role that she never leaves the stage for. Which is a big ask for anybody, but for this one as well, to be the catalyst for all of the events to happen, our lovely heroine, Emma Watson. From a purely pretentious perspective, I'd like people to be able to see a heroine that they haven't seen from an Austen story rise up and take her place among where the other ones hit. So your Elizabeth Bennets, your Emma Woodhouses. We have a new one that we can add to that list. I think we're looking at how Jane Austen was actually a much more varied writer than we think she is. So we know her mostly really through TV and those adaptations, but this shows how different those stories really are. Ultimately, I think we're just here for a really bizarre and bonkers night out.
Sounds good to me.
That's what we're here for.
Are you a Jane Austen fan?
Do you know what? My history with Jane Austen is quite interesting. I hated her when I first had to read her book when I was 18, and I was at first year at uni, and we had to read Pride and Prejudice, and I resisted because I was like, this is a book, it's just a romance, it's going to annoy me. And I remember reading it sitting under a tree at Flinders and laughing hysterically at Mrs. Bennet's ridiculousness. And it was there when realizing that I think to me that Jane Austen's, the best thing that she does with her writing is how much she enjoys writing characters that we are supposed to hate. So that was my way in. And then I remember reading Sense and Sensibility and finding the main heroine really, really boring and feeling kind of sorry for the other one. And then I read Emma, and Emma is so unpleasant most of the time and gets away with it. And I think that doesn't happen in literature very often, where your heroine, usually they have to go through some sort of trial and come out the other end having learnt something and now they're a better person. Emma just kind of realizes that, hey, I can get away with stuff. And people just sort of change their expectations around her. And I think that's really cool. But then I read Northanger Abbey as well, which I think everyone should read because it's her first book. And she's taking the piss out of Gothic literature and she's having the best time doing it. So I highly recommend Northanger Abbey.
So was The Watsons a book that she started to write before? Like, it wasn't at the end of her career.
No.
It was actually before she wrote Emma, wasn't it?
And that's the bit that's really interesting, actually, with it, because she does have another unfinished story. So when I've told people I'm working on an unfinished one, they're all like, oh, it's Sanditon, which is the one that she was writing right at the end of her career. She knew she was dying, and it was kind of this race against the clock to see if she could get it in. But The Watsons actually appears right in the middle of her literary career. So it was just before she'd finished that she'd had Emma written. Northanger Abbey was already done and sold to someone, although they wouldn't publish it until much, much later. Pride and Prejudice had been released, Sense and Sensibility had been released, and we've got this sort of about 30% of the novel, and then she just stops writing it. And it's this sort of fascinating thing for academics for over 200 years. Nobody knows exactly why she didn't finish it. There's a theory that it developed into Emma, which doesn't really line up because those characters are much different. And Austen herself said, no one could possibly write a character so unlikable as Emma Woodhouse, and was really worried about getting that published. There's another theory, which is that she just stopped writing because her father died, and the death of a parent is a really key theme of this part of the story. And then there's another theory as well, which I think is interesting, which is that she started the story with the Watson family being too low of social status to be important. So the story couldn't have a happy ending because they were just not a marriageable prospect. So for a story that's all about, and a society that's all about marrying your way out, it wasn't plausible that that would ever happen to them.
Right.
So we'll save ourselves a happy ending.
So nobody really knows how she would have finished.
No, that's
novel.
There are heaps of versions that are people trying to be like, this is the reimagined version. Supposedly there are notes that were written to her sister Cassandra where she said like this is where the story was going to go, and they get referenced in the play in a really fun way. And then those notes, we don't have the actual notes that Austen wrote to her sister, but we have a record of her sister telling her, I think it's her nephew or her son, that's the information that we have. And then that was finished based on these apparent notes. And then there's been a lot of other versions that people have tried with varying degrees of success. And this is the latest and I think the best. So make sure you come and check out this ending.
Can you tell me more about the cast and crew you have? You mentioned Imogen, but tell me more about the crew as well.
I can do that, absolutely. So Stephen Dean is working on our lighting and sound, which is excellent. So Stephen and I have quite a long history working together. One of the very first things that I ever worked on was at the Bakehouse Theatre, where Stephen was the head lighting technician. So I actually made my way into theatre working with him on lighting and sound. So that's kind of where I cut my teeth originally. So it's always good to get Stephen back in and be like, let's work together again on something. And so he's always good to put in some really fun stuff. So there's some really interesting things coming up in this show to see. It's really exciting to have an assistant director because I am a control freak. So it's nice to be able to like practice my ability to sit back and be like, someone else can do something. Who is the lovely Rowan, who is a student of mine from last year. And we worked together on something as part of his assessment. And he was had a really keen interest in directing and in film and in storytelling. So I thought, let's bring him along, see what he can bring to it. And he's really done well with the cast. He wasn't worried about stepping on my toes, which is really, really good. And he's had some really fantastic insights that the cast have really responded to as well.
I like it when we get new people in.
New people are always good.
Keen and interested.
And also because my back goes very often now because I'm old. It's nice that he can do all of the menial tasks like walking on the stairs.
There's a little bit of naughty language in this show. Very occasionally there's some coarse language, shall we say.
Some words that rhyme with other words.
Yeah. But that's about as quote unquote bad as it gets.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a bit of sexual references at times, but you can ignore all of those if you choose to, or if you want to have more fun, lean into the sex puns.
There's our tagline.
There's your tagline.
I ask everybody this. Why do you think it's important to have community theatre in Adelaide?
What a great question. I think it's really important, kind of like, and I was talking about this today actually with one of my co-workers. We're talking about the concept of carnivals and carnival folk and this idea of community. And I think that that's really important to give some people a place to exist, a place to feel safe, and a place to try things out and sometimes fail. Kate Blanchett has a great line where she tells any student that she works with in a workshop to fail gloriously. And I think that it's really important to have that world that we can fail gloriously and try something and work on it and be better.
Fantastic. Matt, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I also spoke with the actors in The Watsons.
My name is Lindy LeCornu and I play Lady Osborne.
Hi, Lindy.
Hello.
So tell me about your character and how this play found its way to you.
I love how the play found its way to me. But I play Lady Osborne, who is initially invited to the ball that takes place early on in the play, much to the family Osborne's disgust because they don't really want to be there, but that will be revealed. And she is not really a social butterfly. She has quiet dignity. She doesn't really have much to say to these people, but she is there. She's the mother of Lord Osborne, and she has a daughter as well. She really wishes they would marry off. Things will happen to Lady Osborne as the play goes on, and all of that will be revealed as our wonderful audience watches the play.
Was this something that you saw and wanted to be involved in?
No, I was undergoing chemotherapy. I had no hair, and Matt sent me a message that said, I want to send you a script. And I thought, well, that's a bit strange. I can't do any plays at the moment. I read a script and he said, what did you think? And I said, oh, that was fun. He said, did you like Lady Osborne? And I said, yes, I did. And he said, well, I'm going to submit this play, and if it gets accepted, I want you to play Lady Osborne. So Matt gave me a little carrot to look forward to at the end of this process, and here I am with lots and lots of hair and lots of energy and lots of good health, and I'm so delighted to be playing Lady Osborne in the Watsons and loving it to bits.
Well, I'm pleased to hear that on all
Thank you.
accounts.
Thank you very
Your
much.
hair does look beautiful.
Right, thank you.
And I'm very pleased that you are happy and healthy.
It is, it's lovely, and it's lovely to work with Matt.
And this is your big comeback.
It is my big comeback. Yes, it's good fun. Yeah, Lady Osborne is a butterfly in this play who does a sort of an interesting metamorphosis, which I shouldn't even mention, but it is a wonderful change in her character. But a few of us do that because we take control of this play, don't we? Yeah.
It's such a intriguing, interesting script. I mean, Matt has spoken about its origins and how it's an unfinished Jane Austen novel. But were you aware of this novel before the play existed?
No, not at all. No. I just approached it from a point of view of, oh, I like that role.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd like to do that. And it was given to me on a lovely plate.
Well, I'm glad you ate it up.
I did, with gusto. If they had to wheel me on in a wheelchair and give me just, 6 lines, I'm there. Yes, I've been acting for a lot of years, and it's really good to be able to do that. I never thought of myself as a very pretty person, but I guess I could do the character roles. And if you need a character, I'm your girl. So,
Oh, I love that. What was your last outing with the Guild?
I was in 17, and that was wonderful fun. Yes, where we were still older people, but we played 17-year-old. Matt directed it.
Yes.
And wonderful fun, yes. In our school uniforms, and then we changed into our casual smart things, and I took selfies of us, and then I did an interesting dance. It's great fun, yes.
Do you do any dancing in this production?
Lady Osborne does not do any dancing in this production. She does other things, but she does not dance in this production. Yes.
What do you hope that people take away from this production?
That life is there to be lived, that you can take second chances, that you can take a different direction, that there's joy out there for everyone, and sometimes what looks like may not be your path, maybe a different path. Maybe don't read a book by its cover, something like that.
I ask everybody this.
Okay.
Why is it important to have community theatre in Adelaide?
Oh, from my point of view, it's because it gives so many of us who have this passion an outlet, because it gives so many people who love to watch theatre a chance to get to the theatre and see it. Adelaide Community Theatre is high quality theatre. It is massively high quality theatre. And as I tell my grandchildren, who often go to the football, nobody loses when you go to the theatre. Everybody wins, because it's just wonderful. And I also have a comparison to sport, is that I heard once someone say, there's nothing like winning a grand final. And I say, the best thing about being in the theatre is at the end of the play when the audience loves it and claps, and you take a bow and you're there with your cast and you're there with the audience and everybody's loving it. And we get a grand final win at the end of every performance, both the audience and the cast and crew. So there's a lot more things than that are better than a grand final. Ha, ha, ha.
I absolutely agree. Lindy, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
All right, I'm Genevieve Hudson and I play Miss Osborne.
How did The Watsons find its way to you, and what attracted you to this play?
So this was end of last year, and I love looking around Adelaide for new plays. And first of all, this caught my eye because it was a Jane Austen play, but it was certainly one that I didn't know. And so even auditioning, it was certainly an experience going for an audition with characters that I'd never heard of before, thinking, this is Jane Austen, surely I should have heard of this? But as it's not finished, or was never finished, it was just so intriguing. And so when I got the role of Miss Osborne, I was very excited because it then meant that I could actually find out what the potential ending of the play was and the end of the story. So primarily Jane Austen, but also it's not well known, and it feels a bit of a privilege to bring that new Jane Austen story to life in Adelaide.
A lot of people are unfamiliar with it, and very few are aware that it was a novel that Jane Austen was writing and decided to abandon for whatever reason. And then someone's made a play out of it. And everyone's in this production has been very careful about spoilers. Nobody's giving away any endings, and we'll keep it that way. But has anything surprised you in this production, in this play?
I think a few things have surprised me. It's certainly in the way that the playwright wrote herself in to try and resolve the story. That was certainly unexpected. Certainly the way that the characters themselves try to resolve it, certainly in ways that you don't expect. And I've come to really enjoy finding reasons for why those characters would find those unexpected routes. And it's just been a joy to play with that.
You mentioned auditions. Can you touch a little bit on the audition process?
Yes, so I think it must have been in October of last year. It was a while ago, and it was a 2-weekend audition process. So there was an individual audition, then there was a group audition as well. So for the individual audition, there was 2 roles you could go for, which were Emma and Laura. And given that we didn't know very much about either, it didn't really matter at all. You simply brought as much as you could to one of the characters and away you went. And then with the group audition, it was really interesting because we were then introduced to a whole lot of other characters that were in the play that we didn't know much about either. And we didn't know much about their relationship with each other. And so trying to create a bit of a scene with people we hadn't really met, with characters that we hadn't really met, was a lot of fun as well. Going, oh, okay, they're kind of reacting to, oh, I think it means that. Okay, yeah. So that was a lot of fun, actually.
Oh, good. From my point of view, the auditions were very fun as well. It was great. Everyone was having a good time.
Yeah, very much a sense of play and an openness that I really enjoy about auditioning.
Good. I'm pleased to hear that. So are you a Jane Austen fan?
I do love a bit of Jane Austen. It was just, my last show I did was an adaptation of Pride and Prejudice in the Adelaide Fringe. I'd auditioned for the Watsons before Pride and Prejudice, and so to find myself doing 2 of these Jane Austen shows in the one year, in the same year that it's her 250th birthday, was a wonderful coincidence, and one that I'm very much enjoying.
What do you hope audiences will take away from this production?
I hope that while the audience will enjoy some of the originality of Jane Austen's work at the beginning, that they'll come to embrace the different possibilities that are brought in the second half when things are more uncertain and more up in the air as to how it could have or should have ended. I hope that they can see past some of the far-fetched shenanigans and embrace it for the fun storytelling that it is.
Now, your accent, is this a play thing, or is this your natural accent?
I picked up a bit of an accent. I do have some family and friends in the UK, and I've gone over there a couple of times, and each time I've managed to pick up a bit more of an accent, and it has helped for theatre.
Yeah.
But it does end up coming out in, every day at work, and every now and then people will ask, "Oh, are you from England?" No, it's just something I picked up.
Finally, this is something I ask everybody. Mm-hmm. It's a bit of a loaded question. Why is community theatre in Adelaide so important?
Oh, I do like this question. Community theatre is so important because for one, it makes theatre more accessible. People may not be able to spend money on the really big productions that come to Adelaide, but it's also another way for those who do theatre and are part of theatre, either on stage or backstage, to form great friendships, relationships. They get to do what they love, and they get to create, which I think is really what draws me to it as well, creating and networking.
That's excellent. Genevieve, thank you so much for your time.
Very welcome, thank you. Here's my proper introduction. My name's Imogen Deller-Evans, and I'm playing Emma Watson, not to be confused with Emma Watson.
Why this play? I mean, how did it find its way to you?
Oh, I'm pretty attached to the hip with the guild at this point. I love the plays that the guild puts on, and so I'm always on the lookout for what's next. But particularly this one got me very excited because I'm a real Jane Austen fan. What do they call them? Jane-ites? Jane-ites, I think.
Is that what they call them?
I think that's what there's an official term.
Austenites or something?
Maybe it's Austenites. They're going to hate me at home listening to this.
So hopefully people are Watsonites after this. If you're a Jane Austen fan or Austenite, were you familiar with the Watsons before this?
I was. My good friend had actually written a screenplay adaptation of the Watsons.
Oh.
So she put her own finish on it, put her own ending to it. And so I've read that version of it. And then, of course, I read the snippet, the fragments that Jane Austen wrote. And this play takes a bit of a different turn, so it's very fun.
Nobody's giving away any spoilers on this podcast, so you do have to come see the show. Yeah, a lot of interesting, fun things happen.
Nah, super boring.
Yeah, don't come see.
Yeah, you won't miss anything if you don't come see this show.
So you play Emma Watson.
That is correct.
Not to be confused with the actress, but Matt touched on this before, but do you think in Jane Austen's original abandoned novel, the character of Emma Watson then became Emma Woodhouse?
That is one of the theories I have heard, but I don't know, they kind of, they're different. They're very different.
Yeah.
There are some similarities in the way that we've discovered her character in the play. Like, I think there's a level of that immaturity there almost, or like she's a bit stuck up sometimes, which I think Emma Woodhouse is as well, particularly in her treatment of Miss Bates. So I think there are similarities, but when you've got one woman writing all these characters, and especially that this story was kind of not finished and abandoned, of course there are going to be elements that have been used in her other stories as well.
Do you have a theory as to why she abandoned this novel?
I resonate with the theory that Jane Austen's own father was sick at the time as well, and it maybe perhaps just got a little too close to home with the story that she was writing, and that might have been why she abandoned it and just felt like it wasn't right to finish it at the time. That could be why, but we'll never know unless we invent time travel and go back.
Yes, indeed. So you've touched on a little bit on what your character's like, but who is Emma Watson and what's her purpose in life?
Well, her expectation in life growing up was that she would be the heiress to a fortune, and so she's kind of lived her whole life expecting to have these certain luxuries in life or just have a certain position in life, and of course doesn't get that. So she's been raised to be very refined and quite stuck up, as I said, but suddenly all of that's taken away from her, and it's kind of just, she is trying to figure out where she fits in here as well, and like who she is when she's around her family versus who she is when she's in public spaces, and the kind of persona that she has to put on with different people.
The last time you performed with the Guild, it was in a play with 4 actors.
That is correct. Yeah.
How many in this show?
Is it bad that I don't know?
It's
17. It's a big difference.
it's quite a difference.
But we're all only playing one character. So that's useful, I think.
It's like acting, every role is different.
Every role is different, and the shows are all different. Like the tone, yes, this is a comedy, and the 39 Steps, which I did last year with the Guild, is also a comedy, but very different. Like that was kind of like very farcical, very fast-paced craziness. And this is a craziness of its own kind, this show.
Crazy works for us.
We love it at the Guild. Bit of bold, bit of chaos.
So what are you hoping audiences take away from this production when they come see it?
I'm hoping they take away some reflections in their own life about what they want to do and who they want to be. As cheesy as that sounds, I think there's a real element to that in this play.
Everyone's being very carefully guarded with their spoilers and their revelations.
It's bad because I'm normally a person who subscribes to the notion that it doesn't matter if you actually get a spoiler, you'll still enjoy it if the story is well written. That's my opinion. But I also understand and respect that people want to be surprised when they come to the theatre.
I do ask everybody this, and I did ask you this last year. But why, Imogen? Why is community theatre so important in Adelaide?
I don't think it is. I think we should give it up now. I think we should all go home.
Oh.
All this work,
Yeah.
you know, the tireless hours we put in. I bet no one said that to you before.
Genuinely no.
No. I think community theatre is just so important for connection to the arts. I think community theatre is so crucial for keeping the love of theatre alive because it's more accessible for people coming to see the theatre. It's more accessible for thespians themselves to be able to get involved in, and so it's just this way of keeping the art alive.
Excellent. Imogen, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Annabel.
Thank you to all the cast and creatives of The Watsons for giving up their time to talk to me. If you are looking for other ways to support theatre in South Australia, view what's on in Adelaide today and purchase a ticket to a show. Perhaps become a member or subscriber of your local theatre company. If you'd like to volunteer for a local theatre company, please reach out to us. Email fortheloveoftheatrepodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. There's a myriad of roles, including front of house, backstage crew, set construction, costumes, lighting, sound operating, properties, marketing, the list goes on. Theatre is for everybody, so we will help to find the right fit for you. If you send us an email with a description of your skill set, interests, and availability, we will do our best to get you in amongst all the fun. I'd also like to encourage every listener today to become a member of TASA, the Theatre Association of South Australia. It's free to sign up, and you will receive a monthly edition of Encore, the online magazine. And in addition to this, you'll discover what's on each day, along with company events and auditions. You can also access their latest reviews across all of the community theatre companies in this wonderful state of ours. For more information on TASA, simply visit tasaonline.org.au. Thank you again to the cast and crew of The Watsons for talking to me today. And thank you, dear listener, for joining us on this episode. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas for future episodes, please contact us. We'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button on your chosen podcast platform and take a moment to leave us a review. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of For the Love of Theatre podcast. Until next time.